Nate Silver. Give me a take that's Nate Gold. This seems important. Defund the police may really have hurt Democrats standing with non-white voters. Uh-oh. American, Hispanic, and white voters identify as conservative, but white voters are polarized on ideology while non-white voters haven't been. Something like 80% of white conservatives vote for Republicans. Wait, 20% of white conservatives don't vote? Okay. But historically, Democrats have won non-white conservatives. Are we talking socially conservative, like people who have socially conservative values? Often by very large margins. What happened in 2020 is that non-white conservatives voted for Republicans at a higher rate. They started to vote more like white conservatives. That's not good. And so this leads to a question of why. Why did non-white voters start sorting more by ideology? And that's a hard thing to know. But my organization and our partner organizations have done extensive post-election surveys of 2020 voters, and we looked specifically at those voters who switched from supporting Hillary Clinton in 2016 to Donald Trump in 2020 to see whether anything distinguishes this subgroup in terms of their policy opinions. What we found is that Clinton voters with conservative views on crime, policing, and public safety were far more likely to switch to Trump than voters with less conservative views on those issues. And having conservative views on those issues was more predictive of switching from Clinton to Trump than having conservative views on any other issue set was. Man, the 2020 election really was decided by BLM, wasn't it? Not even by COVID-19. It was decided by BLM. So to put it simply, I'm going to close this door. Yeah. Nailed it. So to put it simply, the reason why non-white conservatives are more likely to vote Democrat is because Republicans are mega racist, okay? Super racist. Hate black people. Those darn Republicans. And you can imagine this because have you ever, like, be real, guys. Have you ever talked with, like, recent Hispanic immigrants or, like, older black families in the South? Have you ever asked them about their position on, say, trans or gay people? They tend to be pretty fucking conservative, actually. Like, if you actually talk with these groups, they're like, yeah, like abortion or feminism, they're like, but then they vote Democrat. And the reason they vote Democrat is because many of these people know that at the end of the day, their existence is despised by the Republican Party. The Republican Party would win every single election, every presidential election, if they weren't so insistent on promoting white supremacy. But, hey, that's their cross to burn, so to speak. And assuming that the polling and the analysis here is accurate, and I generally trust Nate Silver. So if Nate Silver is vetting an idea, I generally think that's something I'll take seriously. He's not perfect. Nobody's perfect, but he's good at what he does for the most part. It seems as though we're starting to see a shift in that bias, which is not good. Actually, that's devastating. Like, really, really bad. Now, there is something that I would criticize here. Nothing in the segment that's screenshotted here actually mentions defund the police, you know? Like, is it really the Democrats' fault that the BLM riots scaled up in large part on account of Donald Trump? And then Donald Trump said, these riots are a Democrat thing. They want it's them. And, like, voters believed him? Is that really Democrats' fault? I was critical after the 2020 election of moderate Democrats who started blaming progressives for their narrow wins in state elections or in their losses, because that defund the police narrative was something they said they really got raked over the coals for. And to an extent, I can understand why. Because you guys have to understand, defund the police is not a popular political program, especially with people of color. I'm going to be real with you guys, okay? Listen, the idea of police abolitionism, of reducing police presence and moving their responsibilities onto other institutions, is based in epic. I completely 100% agree with that, okay? I'm not moving away from that position in the slightest, all right? However, you got to understand that to a lot of people, the phrase, I mean, it really just sounds like get rid of the police. And if you're a part of a demographic that relies on the police, or at least seems to rely on the police, that can be really threatening, okay? Now, on a high level sociological like perspective, we know, like you guys know, I know, that police contribute to the high levels of criminality in inner city black communities, don't we? Because through disproportionate policing, through disproportionate sentencing, and through a bunch of other policies that are promoted as part of a law and order package, these communities are kept economically deprived. We know that. We know that. And it makes sense, and it can be proven. It's empirical. It's very, very easy to study and recognize that. But on the ground, in a day-to-day life perspective, okay, if you live in those communities, you do not want less police in your community, because day to day, your livelihood, the threat to your life, to your well-being, isn't so much coming from the police as it is from gangs, okay? Police kill X number of people per year. Gangs kill far, far more, okay? And that's a fact. Which means that, and of course, there's a difference between those things because police have a responsibility as servants of the state to maintain a certain level. Like, there's a difference. I'm not denying that. I'm not equivocating. But I'm saying that from the perspective of somebody who lives in these communities, they want the police. And the goal, optically, then, should be to sell them on the sociological explanation. The idea that it is, in fact, the presence of the police in the long term that contributes to this. But that isn't going to be done with the slogan defund the police. That's not the instrument through which that understanding can be made. It's really difficult to throw that to convey that information in a slogan. It's almost maybe it is impossible. Maybe what we should do, maybe what we should really focus on isn't defund the police, which again, I want to be clear, is something that I support. But I'm talking about what wins people over, what doesn't cause us to lose elections. Maybe we should focus on edge issues that are a little bit more descriptive and a little easier to simplify. Marijuana. A huge component of overcriminalization stems from the drug war. Maybe it should be end the drug war. Maybe that's a really good thing to like champion right there. There are states where tens or hundreds of thousands of people are or have been in jail because of incredibly petty, non-violent drug possession crimes. With marijuana, mostly, but also with other things. And a lot of people, especially a lot of people of color, know family and friends who have been subjected to that, okay? I guarantee you, all right? If you're like a mom or something, and your little boy, like your kid's son, like 20 years old or something, gets locked up for 18 months because they had like a quarter ounce of weed on them, you're going to remember that. And the goal there is to convince that mom that the problem there wasn't the marijuana. The problem there wasn't their son going out and buying it. The problem was that the state decided that the crime of owning such a thing should warrant a year and a half in prison. And hold on, my cat, I can hear, what are you doing and why are you doing it? He's in there fucking around with his shower curtains because he wants me to turn the water on so he can bury his face in the water stream. Does what I'm saying make sense? You know? So we have the drug war. You know? We have that. I think that's a good edge issue to focus on. But man, this defund the police thing, I don't know. Now again, the screenshot we have right here doesn't mention defund the police, but since that's the line that Republicans fearmongered over, it's probably safe to assume there's a relationship here. So the real question is, who's to blame? Well, my argument is this. You're going to be shocked by it, I know. Republicans are to blame. There's going to be a big, big movement to blame progressive Dems for this, to blame Justice Dems, lefties, whatever. No. The Democrat Party does not get to take BLM under its wing, does not get to align with BLM, does not get to generate the positive support and attention that it got for siding with BLM, and then after the 2020 election, throw their arms up in the air and blame people for a take that was associated with that movement. You don't get to do that. You don't get to shelter the movement, to associate with the movement, and then say, we could have done better if it wasn't for that defund the police narrative. No, no. The real people to blame here are the people who are actually responsible for the fear-mongering, the Republicans. Democrats, on their own, didn't talk about defund the police much. It was mostly this decentralized activist thing that got picked up by and contextualized a couple of Justice Dems. Like, that's it. Like, just a little bit of involvement. Not much. 99% of the time when the term defund the police came up, it was a Republican saying that Joe Biden, not AOC, not Ilhan Omar, but Joe Biden was going to unilaterally Thanos snap all police departments out of existence if he won the presidency. And that fear-mongering would have taken place whether or not AOC, Ilhan Omar, whatever, had brought these terms up and defended them, okay? Even if not a single Justice Dem, not a single progressive candidate had ever once gave any attention to this term, this defund the police slogan, Republicans still would have fearmongered over it, okay? So the real question should be not how do we blame progressives for tanking moderate Dems' chances with their inefficacious slogans. The real question should be, how do we counter conservative disinfo campaigns on law and order? How do we counter that? How do we provide a different, better narrative? Because Democrats didn't really provide a very great narrative back during the 2020 election. To be fair, they really didn't. Like, if you actually think about it, if you reflect on what took place that whole time, Democrats were in this weird meta position where they would sometimes downplay the riots, but other times they would attack them in a performative denunciatory kind of way, but they didn't respond very much to the Republicans' direct accusations about them being anti-policing. And there were activist circles that were brought to national prominence in Portland and Seattle because their words were focused on really heavily. But why are these people getting to decide the platform for the Democratic Party? That probably isn't even what they wanted to do. If you put a microphone up to an Antifa dude and he says X or Y or defund the police, he doesn't want to act as a slogan master for the Democratic Party. He's just vibing. He's vibing right now. But Democrats, I don't think they really took control of the narrative. Like always, they let Republicans take control of the narrative. Every single time this happens. The BLM protests were at their height, enormously popular. And I feel like the Democrats squandered a lot of that. They squandered it. They didn't do a sufficient job of appropriately controlling the discourse around that issue. And that's the reason why stuff like this happens. And if we don't get that shit under control, then Democrats might not even be able to win, even if we were able to get rid of the Electoral College. We might not even have that. We might lose even that. And then we're fucked.